welcome everyone, and thank you so much for coming tonight. Let us pray at this time before we begin. My dear Heavenly Father, thank you for giving us this opportunity to remember and celebrate the life of an amazing woman, Molly Dahl. As we celebrate Molly, help us to always remember how she touched each of us through her wisdom, her strength, her wit and humor, her dedication, and most of all, her love. She truly cared for and loved the Bear Creek family. Replace our grieving hearts with a joy in knowing a person like Molly who we love and admire. In Jesus' name, amen.
Welcome, family, friends, former students, parents, and teachers. Good evening. My name is Terry Nonamaker, and I'm a teacher and a friend of Molly Dahl. Last April, many of us gathered here tonight had to mourn the passing of Molly in our own homes due to the COVID-19 virus. However, tonight, we are here together to celebrate the life of Dr. Molly Dahl. Molly was born on this day in 1944 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So it's only fitting that we celebrate her life today, September 19th. Molly grew up in Tulsa and went on to the Oklahoma State University to get her teaching degree. She then started her teaching career in Oklahoma City as an elementary teacher. During her time in Oklahoma City, she met and married her husband, Dr. Larry Dahl, who's with us today. They both moved to St. Louis to pursue their education even further. In fact, their PhDs. And Molly was a teacher and a principal in the Brentwood Public School District for 13 years. In 1983, they moved to Colorado. Molly became the principal of Bear Creek Elementary, and at the time, Bear Creek was a struggling school. Molly believed that each and every child deserved to be given the highest quality education. So it wasn't long until Bear Creek became a school of excellence. Thank you, Molly. Bear Creek remained an excellent school well after Molly's retirement in 2005. She will always be remembered as a great friend, a great principal, and most importantly, a great leader in education. Let us begin this evening by hearing from just a few of the many people she touched with her compassion and leadership. Speaking first, Miss Missy Grabing.
It's great to see all of you, some we haven't seen in so long. So wonderful. Dr. Molly Dahl, principal extraordinaire. Most people who knew Molly knew her as tough, rebellious, consistent, fair, and tireless. The leader of a beloved community, Bear Creek. She commanded respect. When she entered a room, people listened. They paid attention when she spoke. Dr. Dahl demanded all students give their education top priority. She believed tough life circumstances should not deter any student, any person, from reaching their potential through knowledge and discipline. She expected every student, no matter grade, gender, race, color, creed, or background, to aspire towards excellence and personal achievement. Of course, it wasn't just the high-level curriculum. It was the expectation of proper behavior, work ethic, and respect. And unlike many schools, there were real consequences for infractions. Her students knew where they stood, what to expect, and the lines that were not to be crossed. She knew every student by name. She would follow each child's academic and extracurricular progress. At any given time, she could stop a kiddo in the hall, give them a heads up on what they were doing in the day, and people would be shocked. They would be shocked. How did she know that? She knew. For students who needed extra motivation, she would sign off on progress and behavior reports daily. Again, she knew what they were up to. The children saw her as kind of scary, but caring and concerned. And she was also quick to recognize breakthroughs and accomplishments. Molly demanded her teachers give 100% all of the time. She hired the best people in the teaching field to create a unique and high-quality environment. Many times she would state that surrounding herself with smarter, more innovative, and disciplined people made her look good and made our community amazing. As a physical educator, I began my Bear Creek career with excessive enthusiasm and passion. It was not always met with the same from classroom teachers. When I whined to Molly about the fact that I and my discipline were seen as just a planning period for classroom teachers, she advised me, or should I say commanded me, to prove them wrong. Our specials team, with the support of that great administration, learned how to do that. 27 years later, when I retired, I was beyond proud and frankly very protective of our outstanding PE program. One of our other colleagues, Michelle Colby, was presenting the Margaret Dahl Award at a recent 8th grade graduation ceremony. As part of that presentation, Michelle described the history behind our most prestigious award. I would like to quote an excerpt from her speech. When I was hired 16 years ago, I was actually hired after school had been in session for a few days, and on a Wednesday evening, I was told to spend the next 2 days learning about the school and to be prepared to teach the following Monday. 2 subjects, both U.S. history and geography. I had been out of college for about 12 years. This was my first teaching experience, my 3rd career move, and there was very little time to prepare for the entire school year. I was terrified, but I dove in. I don't know if I've ever been as tired as I was at the end of that first full week. When it ended, I was in the main office dropping off some paperwork and ran into Dr. Dahl. She asked me how my first week went. Well, not knowing her that well, I thought, oh, wow, this is cool, how reassuring. Principal wanted to know how I did. So I told her the truth. I was exhausted. Without missing a beat, she said to me, only in the way Dr. Dahl could, you don't have time to be exhausted. These kids need the best of you each and every day, so rest up and dive back in with vigor on Monday. I must say, Molly knew her teachers. She respected us because she understood the love, the passion, and the dedication that we had. She always had our backs and forgave our mistakes quickly. Working for and with Dr. Dahl was not everyone's cup of tea. The philosophy and rigor was challenging, to say the least. One of her most respected qualities was her vision and her tenacity in staying true throughout the ever-changing educational philosophies and personnel. By staying tough and true, she created many generations of high-level thinkers, devoted workers, and respected human beings. Dr. Dahl attended all, and I do mean all, school events, programs, games, and concerts. I can still see her sitting in the stands at a basketball game, waving her pom-pom, pridefully cheering on the players, parents wanting to talk to her, and she's got to watch the parents. She was in the bleachers at a windy track meet, yelling for her Bears. When our community suffered a death of a student or staff member, Molly was our source of strength. She got us through Columbine. She was a true comforting presence for families and staff members as we would all grieve such tremendous loss. Molly had a sense of humor, as you're probably going to hear, as you already heard. She was well respected, but couldn't escape the antics of her loving staff, especially on her birthday. She was so loved and respected that she put up with this as we wore black armbands at school on her 50th birthday. She didn't even get angry when we removed all of her office furniture and replaced it with plastic kindergarten furniture. She allowed squirrels into her office through an open window to get peanuts from her desk drawer. That was planned. She'd buy them just for the squirrel. She didn't fire her beloved teachers dressed in costume when we interrupted a district principal's meeting with the birthday fairies singing happy birthday ridiculously to her in front of all of her peers. She loved being surprised at talent shows and after-school activities, watching her staff sing and dance. When we reached fundraising goals, she would volunteer to perform her principal's duties from the school's roof, escorted by the fire department. When she retired, some of us kept in close contact with her. Molly became our friend and a friend to our families. She supported us through family crises, divorces, and deaths. She attended family funerals. She celebrated with our families on holidays, weddings, and birthdays. She gave us comfort and stability at our very low moments and toasted our friendships. For everything she was and everything she brought to our lives, we celebrate her life well lived. We are the best versions of ourselves because of Molly. Craig Bowman.
My friend Molly Dahl was a rebel. She was a revolutionary. By the time I reached Bear Creek, I had been fired from the Cherry Creek School District for having too elitist an idea of what public education ought to be. I went through the Denver Public Schools and finally came to the Jeffco Schools in 1980. I'd been in Jefferson County schools for about 10 years when Molly called me up at O'Connell Middle School and said, "We'd like to have you over here at Bear Creek." And the first thing that I remember seeing at Bear Creek, walked through that front door, and you see that sign in the front hallway. We're guardians. We are guardians of the vision. Guardians of in a public school, a vision, not a strategic plan, a vision. You see, Molly and I shared the same Catholic faith. And you don't go to a Catholic school without a vision. We're guardians of that vision. As Missy just indicated, you walk into a 7th grade classroom and you, with my master's degree in English from the University of Denver, you walk in there and you teach as if you are teaching at the University of Denver. Right now, I'm teaching tutoring at the Catholic Seminary, and I'm teaching what I used to teach in 7th grade. She had that vision. We teachers were going to be first. No, as Missy already said, you don't have time to be exhausted. You work full-time, 24/7, at teaching students. This is what you wanted us to do. You teach students to surpass you. They're not just going to be as good as you. They're not going to just get out of high school. They're going to be better than you. Another something that I admired about Molly was that she insisted that we be first-rate scholars. So what she encouraged me to do one year was, "Craig, I know you've got your master's degree, and you teach very well, and that's all very nice. I want you to go to some local community college and take freshman writing. I said, Molly, what do you want me to do? I want you to get the seventh grade students ready for first-year college. And that's what so many of them were ready to do. Finally, the thing that I admired most about Molly was she reported every time that she caught me eating meat on a Friday during Lent. She wanted to get on the PA. Hey, Craig Bowman, the great Catholic scholar, is eating meat on a Friday during Lent. I said, she caught me with a mouthful of hamburger or hot dogs or whatever it was. She said, Craig Bowman, are you eating meat on a Friday during Lent? I said, maybe. And she said, are you going to confession tomorrow morning? But we shared that vision. In previous schools, as I just indicated, to previous schools and other administrations, she was a rebel. She was a revolutionary. She was going to, as Missy just indicated, she was going to have kids go through a rigorous academic regimen. Guess what they call that in other Jefferson County schools? Elitism. She was going to have the most elite teachers. The final thing I really appreciate about Molly, I remember getting to Bear Creek, first day of school, and I got there and I said, aren't we going to have any bonding experiences? I was waiting for bonding experiences. Please excuse this interruption. And I was not prepared to teach curriculum the very first day of class. I said, I'm going to teach curriculum the very first day. You can do that? Are you allowed to do that? And that's what I did. First day. I didn't say we're going to study this or this or this or this. I started with parts of speech. And then I said, Progedamus in pace, in nomine Christi, amen. Let us proceed in peace in the name of Jesus Christ. And I taught from day one to day last. And as Molly's policy always said, when you see Mr. Bowman out there lying in the sun, trying to get a tan, that's the last day of school. Thank you very much. And Officer John Hunt.
Good evening. It's been really good after all these years to see some familiar faces from the Bear Creek Elementary K-8 area since I went up to the high school a long time ago, so it's very nice. My name's John Hunt. I was a Lakewood police officer for 40 years. I happened to be Molly's DARE officer for 7 years when the program really kicked off in 1991. When I was back in college, I took an English literature class, Charles Dickens. And one of the books that we were assigned to read and had to write papers on was Great Expectations. And that got me thinking about Molly when I was ready to come up with my thoughts for today. And the title totally reminded me of Molly, and she had great expectations for all her students. That was her mantra. Molly's had a solid educational foundation at Bear Creek Elementary, as it was called back when I first came, and then later on it changed to Bear Creek K-8 when Molly extended her vision. Molly's vision at Bear Creek Elementary in the K-8 was built on a few very important tenets. Number one, structure. Molly and I had conversations often about some of the kids that walked into that door in the morning every day at Bear Creek Elementary. The only structure they were going to get was going to be at school, and from her and her staff and from myself. So structure was very important. She had high standards. I was talking to one of my former principals through text, I think, when Molly passed away, Phyllis Emmerich. And one of the things that Phyllis said to me was that Molly had high standards. I couldn't agree more. Another thing that Molly had was commitment. She wanted commitment from the kids to educate and to make the best of what they could be. And she certainly expected commitment from us, the staff, that we were going to deliver everything we could. Discipline. Captain Gary Barber, who worked many years at Lakewood PD, came to a DARE graduation one day, and he saw Molly stand up in front of about 800 students at the old gym, and he said to me after that, the kids, of course, immediately tuned into her, got quiet, and were on task, and that was going to be a program, and they better be quiet. Gary Barber said he had never seen anything like that, and he wished that his police could do the same thing that she could do. But Molly wasn't only about discipline, she was about love. I saw her hug so many kids, and more important than the physical contact and the hugs was the investment in time, investment in their future. Molly, to me, when I walked in there, compared to the other schools that I had in the DARE program, Molly came across as conservative, back to basics. But for sure, she was a character. You could see that. And she was a rebel, as Craig said, of sorts. Behind all those things, there was a rebel. And what I mean by that was Molly had, at Bear Creek K-8, there were all these incentives and stunts, I'll call them, at Bear Creek, all in the pure name of getting kids to learn, kids to achieve, to feel good about themselves, and to get the materials that were needed to teach kids. I thought about Molly. I don't know why she was, but she was on the roof at some point in time one year to, I don't know, again, for educational purposes. Another time I got a phone call, and they said, I think it was Karen Knezovich called me and said, we'd like you to do something. That's by the time I think I was over at Bear Creek High School. I said, what's that? We need you to come over here and arrest Molly. And and Molly had a paper white suit on. I had to handcuff her in front of about 1,000 kids. I wouldn't say throw her, but place her in the back seat of the police car and go away lights and siren, all again in the name of education and development of these kids. The other thing that made Molly a little bit of a rebel, and it's interesting, I'm not Catholic, I'm Protestant, but Molly one year had a picture of the Pope in her school public office. And I looked at it one day and I said to Molly, "What's that doing there?" And Molly kind of chuckled and said, "One of my parents gave it to me and I thought I'd hang it up." She had that up there for months until one day I noticed, as a trained police observer, the Pope was missing. And I said to her, "What happened, Molly?" She said, "Well, the area superintendent visited and had me take it down." So, again, Molly could do it her way. She was a rebel. She was also a big supporter of the police. She welcomed my weekly appearance beginning in 1991, and later for Officer Stacy Collis, who came after me several years later. She wasn't one of these principals that told you, park the police car in the back so nobody sees it. She was right on board with us. She embraced me at Lakewood PD, in the classroom, at DARE graduations in the old gym, and the famous DARE skate nights that would wrap the crowd around the building. We had the fire department mad at us for going over the limit, but she was going to support us, and she did it big along with the Bear Creek community. Occasionally, she could be irreverent. She sometimes would nickname me Officer Gun, Officer Bullet, Officer Bang Bang. In fact, when I retired here in January, one of the former Bear Creek students that now, of course, is 30 years old or something, she gave me a stuffed bear in a police uniform, and you push the button, the siren goes off, and it said Officer Bang Bang on the badge. And she mentioned how Molly used to call me that, sometimes behind my back. But that was Molly, a little frisky at times, a little, a little feisty, and a rebel. It's a testament to Molly and her staff at Bear Creek, which I was fortunate to be a part of for 7 years, that many police and deputy families sent their kids to Bear Creek. Some lived in the attendance area, some open enrolled, but they loved it. They couldn't have been happier with the education provided. This past January, Molly attended my retirement at the police department, and before the festivities started, she came up to me and said some really nice, kind comments, sought me out in a kind of a private way, and it was very touching, and I appreciate that. In conclusion, Molly was an American original that we all remember fondly. Most importantly, it's her lasting impact that she had on so many kids that attended Bear Creek K-8. Thank you.
Thank you, three. It's our opportunity now for us to open up to the community, for you to have an opportunity to share a favorite moment, a funny story, or anything you would like to this evening. So these lights are a little bit bright, so please just raise your hand and come on up if you don't mind, or you can share at your seat.
I just wrote 5 notes down here. So in 2000, I became the principal of Bear Creek High School, and Ron Mitchell was the interim principal at Alameda, where I came from. And he said, if you want to be successful, I think we need to get you and Molly and me together. I mean, you want to be successful? So I'm like, oh my God, what are we going to do here? Between that meeting and the first couple of months, it came to our attention. I was from Bartlesville, Oklahoma, 40 miles away from Tulsa. And I went to Oklahoma State, graduated there. My parents were from Missouri. My mom graduated from St. Louis U, and it's a Catholic college. So here we have these little Catholics in here, all from Oklahoma, Oklahoma State. Anyway, we had a lot in common. So that was really a good icebreaker. Now, the next thing that happens is my kids in kindergarten and second grade are at my neighborhood elementary, and it was the beginning of the school year. My husband, I like to say I did it, but it was really all of him that second year, went at 10 o'clock at night and stayed all night to get one of the 6 openings in before and after school care at the elementary. Got there at 6 a.m., and so we got in. 3 weeks later, they said, by the way, we're moving it to Ken Carroll Ranch. I said, my kids are in Spanish enrichment. What are they going to do in the middle of the winter? Trudge through 2 feet of snow on their own, kindergarten and second grade? Yep. I called Molly. Molly, help. What do I do? What should I say to them? You don't say anything to them. You just get your kids in my school tomorrow. And so that was the best thing that ever happened to our children. It was the very best. I do want to slip in, since John brought this to my attention. I asked, because of the Catholic stuff, I asked Molly, how in the heck do you do this? Well, Phyllis, I run it like a parochial school, but I fired all the nuns. That was Molly. So I would go over, I would call, truly. Anyone can, at the front office, I need to talk to Molly. She's in the teacher's classroom constantly. She's always in the teacher's classroom. That's why they were so successful. So I would just finally go and plant myself in her office until she would get to her office so that I could ask her my 1 or 2 really important questions. That was just how Molly was. One of the biggest things is that, and some of you people at Bear Creek that have been around know that Bear Creek High School really led a lot of other high schools in interventions. In other words, we took that lower 20 to 30% and really focused on them. And Rick DeFore was the big leader of this in the nation. I spent money, a lot of money, taking teachers to these conferences. Molly was doing this before Rick DeFore was born, I think. I mean, she would pull the at-risk kids out and put them in groups of 6 or 7 or 8 so that they could learn how to read better and get up to their grade level. So not only was, and you have a lot of this in the card, but I couldn't write it all. Not only did she have, like John said, high standards and such, but she had every single student in mind, every single one of them. Yes, she wanted, kids would come to our school. Oh my goodness, okay, you can go into Spanish 4 because you're in 9th grade, because you went to Bear Creek K-8. But very high standards, but she was compassionate. And I know everyone at the K-8 knows this, but what a fun, intelligent, charismatic woman was Molly Dahl. So thank you for putting up with this.
Thank you, Phyllis. See, I'm a little awkward up here right now because I don't know if Cheryl did this or if Molly's doing this to me. But, go stand off to the side in the fire. I know she made comments to me.
Hi, my name is Reagan Headland, was McHugh, and I had the privilege of starting at Bear Creek as a kindergartner and graduating as an 8th grader. And so I have basically known Dr. Dahl my whole life. And I just wanted to come up here and say thank you, because she really shaped me into the person I am today, as a mentor and a friend. I remember being in elementary school, just a funny story, that you'd be in the classroom and you'd hear her heels stomping down the hall, not stomping, but you could hear Dr. Dahl's heels. And so you were just sitting there thinking, is she going to come in our classroom and observe? Because she always opened that door, and then she just stood in the back of the class and observed the teachers. And so we were all on our best behavior when Dr. Dahl was in the classroom. But she really prepared me for high school, college, and life. And I went to high school thinking, oh, this is going to be so hard. And it was like, I wouldn't say a breeze, but I was very prepared, as Ms. Roman said. I was prepared for college. And then even after college, she was there to support me. She came to my wedding, our family events. She got to meet my son and our funerals. So I just want to thank her for always being there, writing recommendations for me, and always giving me the courage to be my best. And I will use that as my son starts his education now. I was telling him about the summer homework we used to have too. And he was like, Mom, you don't have homework in the summer. And I was like, well, yeah, you do. And we had a list of books we had to read, and those book reports were due. So he's going to be ready and under Dr. Dahl's watch too, as she watches over us. So thank you.
I don't really know how to follow that because you just said everything. I'm Sarah Hackenberg. I'm also McHugh. And I just remember, same thing like Reagan said, not really actually realizing until after I graduated college that I was further along than a lot of people that I knew. And I hated it at the time, but it truly set me up for my first job, changing careers. It gave me not just the educational aspect of it, but just life, because I knew I had to work harder no matter what it was in order to get where I wanted to go. So you remember certain teachers and you remember certain things about your life, but Dr. Dahl was always something I remembered. And it was also fun having her. My mom is a librarian, my dad is a police officer, my sister, and basically she would always look at me and say, we got you. So they knew everything I did. So, but it's yeah, I don't really know what else. I'm super shy, so I apologize. But
It's Dr. Dahl. I think she sometimes says, but once a bear, always a bear.
Yes.
And so we'll always remember that. Thank you.
My name is Cynthia Hawes, and I am not of the Bear Creek family. I know a lot of the Bear Creek people, but I was the principal at Normandy Elementary, which is, I'm not sure it is now, but it was quite an affluent, high-end school. And Molly had this very impacted school. And you would never think we had very much in common, but in reality, when we got to know each other, we had quite a bit. I will tell you we had 3 C's in common. One, and I've heard others speak of this, Molly and I both had Irish Catholic mothers. Both of us went to Catholic schools, and I think there's something that just happens to you when you are in Catholic schools and taught by nuns. You will live a disciplined life. And we both ran very similar schools in discipline. Molly also, I said the second C would be probably capitalism. I'm very glad she married you because Molly loved to spend money. Molly was by far the best dressed principal in Bear Creek. And after her death, I noticed that Cherry Creek is not doing well. She said to me once, one of the buyers there said, "Why don't you have a little party for your friends? And, we'll have a little showing." And she said, "Well, Cynthia, I had to tell him I had no friends." Well, Molly loved clothes, as you know. Molly loved jewelry. I loved cars. And so we had that bit of capitalism in common. The other thing we had in common, we're both very conservative, I would say traditional principles. I hope there are no higher administration here tonight, because it was very, very painful to be a conservative principal when we were there. And so we flew. Molly was more overt. She was more known. I flew more underground. And Molly, I think, greatest attribute that she shared and inspired in me, she was a marvelous instructional leader. There aren't many principals who are instructional leaders. And to be an instructional leader, you have to know curriculum, and you have to have very fine teachers who can execute that curriculum. Well, Molly, I came from Littleton, and Littleton was a more conservative district. I had open court. She had Saxon math, which I adopted and got in trouble with for it. But Molly had a great knowledge of good, solid curriculum. When we'd go to principals' meetings, it was always the greatest, the newest, and we'd throw the 3-ring binders in our trunks, and we both had the best traction of any principals in Jefferson County. But Molly had a way of really knowing. She knew how to teach reading. She knew the essence of she cut right to the chase and know what was essential in curriculum. One day, in the spring, when we started to do our ordering, I also had open court. And open court, they became a little trendy. I guess they got woke. And they changed some of their primary. And so I was in great distress. So I went over to Molly and I said, I just can't believe this. I really don't like these new workbooks in the primary grades. And she said, well, I don't have to worry about it. And I said, well, why wouldn't you have to worry about it? It's the same. She said, come with me. So she took me over to that old gym, which was just iconic. That should never have been torn down. And it was like going into the bowels of hell. And there were just unbelievable boxes. And I said, what is this? And she said, that is all the old open court workbooks. I bought them all. I got the man in, and I just simply bought them all. And she said, I think I've got enough until I retire. Molly would do those kinds of things, and that was the kind of the rebel. There's a funny kind of rebellion in her, but she was savvy enough to know that kind of thing. We rarely adopted any of the Jeffco curriculum. And Molly also had a marvelous way, and you teachers have addressed that. She had an attribute of really being able to find and train and bring out the very, very best in teachers. And I always envied her that. I think I had a good school, although when those CSAP scores would come out, by God, Bear Creek always beat us. And so I found as a colleague probably the most inspiration from any colleague I have ever had. So I know that Molly is somewhere. She's sitting on a kind of a green velvet Victorian chair. She has a pecan pie on her lap. She has a beautiful collie at her right and some mangy cats on her left. And I think she would be smiling down. I would say, job well done, mission accomplished, Molly. Thank you.
Made it through the clouds over there. Well, my name is Jessica Wood. I met Molly in Dr. Dahl in think it was 1995. That's when we started in kindergarten there. And gosh, I was trying to think of all the beautiful memories that we have with her and the wonderful things that she instilled in a lot of us being there. I know there's a core group of us that we grew up together through Bear Creek from kindergarten, and we're still great friends today. There's a few of us back there. But I think some of the greatest memories I can remember about Dr. Dahl is she always celebrated even the littlest things, from the award ceremonies to the medals that we still have today from the award ceremonies. Just teaching us to celebrate the little things, the moments, the friendships. And I didn't realize until later in life how much I expected of myself and of others, and how I was driven to accomplish and want more for my life, never settling. And that is so clear in what Dr. Dahl instilled in the teachers, allowing them the freedom to be who they wanted to be and to love us the way that we needed to. So many faces here. I have such beautiful memories with each of you. And knowing how much Dr. Dahl had a part of that is very clear. I was remembering a story. My older brother, he went to Bear Creek as well. And he shared a memory that he was playing catch at his bus stop, which was a few miles from school. And the bus driver yelled at them. He said they were in trouble. They shouldn't be doing that. And the next day, they were doing the same thing. The bus driver drove away, and then behind the bus, he said there was a black car, and Dr. Dahl got out. And she yelled at the boys. She said, "You are not supposed to be doing this. This is so dangerous." Scolded all of them. And then at school, she called him into her office. Again, scolded him, told him how dangerous it was, and he was scared to death. But he said, how many principals would care that much? How many principals would drive to make sure their kids are safe? So I look at the success that my family has had. My brother, he works in D.C. He's very successful. My sister, she has her master's in social work. I'm an actress. I just booked a movie, and I just see how much success that we've had, and again, just how we were taught never to settle, and how much love that she had for us. I remember my parents were even intimidated by her, so I know how much power she had, how much she impacted my life and the lives of those around us. I remember in 8th grade, when we went from 7th to 8th grade, Dr. Dahl had retired just right about then. And we were all really nervous what it was going to look like. We felt like we didn't have our sea legs about us and what it would look like moving forward. And when I don't know if many of you have seen the 8th grade graduation video that we had when Dr. Dahl came back. I just remember taking the time and writing her a letter and just telling her how big of a piece of my life that she was, and how important it was that she was there for us to feel ready to move on. So I love her. I miss her. The world is a lonelier place without her. Thank you for doing this, organizing it, and giving us an opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Hello to all of you. My name is Stacy Stutzman, or when I knew Molly Dahl, when I started, I was Stacy Lobby. So I know a lot of you from my maiden name. And Molly was my first principal. When I first got out of college, she was my first principal interview with Karen Knezvich at the time. They were a little different. It was just the two of them. And a little bird on staff had told me that I was friends with that sometime right before all of this had happened, that Molly had had a pointer that she had gone around during staff meetings and had annoyed the staff to no end, tap, 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 right, to the point that someone had stolen the pointer. So I knew this fact going into my job interview, and I think about this at this point in my life, and I think, what was I thinking as a brand new person going into hope to get a job? But I went in, and I interviewed, but I knew that she had this sense of humor. So at the very end of my interview, I said, well, Dr. Dahl, I have a gift for you. And I handed her what looked like a little pen. Sorry for all of you that this affected. And she pointed it out, and it was a retractable pointer. And she started running out of the office around, I think, Debbie, point. So anyway, but I got the job. So something went right? And that wonderful sense of humor, I knew that it followed me but that my first 3 years when she was my principal, and just other little things, knowing, I think some of you had talked about that, the clack, 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 as she would come down the hall. And my teammates and I was on the 3rd grade team at the time, and we would call each other, if Karen Knezovich was coming down, the pencil's coming, the pencil's coming. If Molly was coming down, the red pen is coming, the red pen is, But we knew that it was all in good fun, and because honestly, I can't believe the privilege it was to be a new teacher and have her come and observe me and give me feedback 10 times each semester. It's unheard of now. It seems like there's just not time for principals to be able to do that, but somebody said that. She was always in the classrooms, and the students knew, and we knew, and it was a gift. And again, it was great feedback. It was so personal. But she wasn't without a sense of humor, because I think, again, why I did this, I don't know. But at this time, when I was this young teacher, I thought, my goal for every time she comes and observes is to see if I can get her laughing so hard that she has to leave the room. And several times I was able to accomplish that, which was pretty fun. But she'd always come back, and it was just such great feedback. And even in all of that hilarity and fun, she always took the time when we would sit down together, and she would say, Stacy, what I really care about for you is balance in your life, because she saw me working crazy hours. And she said, you still have to do it all. You still have to get it all done, and so that you know what's important and what's not. Until you figure that out, you've got to do it all. But I care that you have a life outside of the classroom. I care that you have friends. I care that you get to do activities. She cared about the whole person, which I really appreciated as a teacher. And I needed that guidance, because it's so easy, as we've said, that you get so involved in your job and your work as a student, as a teacher, that it can be blinding to the importance of the outside. Her faith was so apparent, I think, to all of us, and she always affirmed mine as well, which I really, really appreciated within myself, my values, my teaching, my own life. So with all of the funny moments, there were always a lot of really caring moments, support, backing me no matter what, even with my mistakes and learning. So again, I just am so appreciative to Dr. Dahl for starting me well on my teaching path. And even now, I think, gosh, I wish my kids now could go through Bear Creek with Molly Dahl as principal, getting that. And so instead, I'm going to have to prepare them, like many of you have said, I think down here, like, okay, we're going to still, she's looking down, and that's going to just be a little blessing of itself. So thank you all so much, and thank you again for putting this together.
Hi, my name's Michelle. I had a daughter who graduated 2009, so I don't know what that makes 8th grade, but I was there when they were going through the changes to make the elementary school a charter school. And I can remember some of the meetings and just watching Molly have this vengeance about, like, I'm refusing to turn my kids over to another junior high. I just can't do it. I've built them up to 6th grade, and I want them to actually keep that skill set until I can put them across the street. And she was just so diligent about that need, and just to, you know, the ownership she had of all the students being hers was really profound to me. And I am a bent to chaos beyond measure, and my daughter's super organized, and I give it all to Molly's philosophy. And growing up in Bear Creek Elementary, I have a sister who had kids in the Littleton Public School system, and sometimes we'd switch off for field trips. And, you know, I'd be on their bus, and kids would be wrestling, and I mean, it'd just be mayhem. And she'd be over on our bus, and, you know, we'd have the fingers up in silence before it even came to a stoplight, you know, so. Just the order and the quietness in the hall. Just her philosophy of having a calm mind was such a profound piece of life skill that they got trained in for 8 years. You know, that was awesome. But I just had this huge garage sale and went through a bunch of stuff and found something that Olivia wrote. They got to pick, I think it was in 3rd grade, and they had to write a postcard to somebody about an adventure they had, and she actually wrote it to Dr. Dahl. I brought it. I just found it. I go, oh my gosh. After I got that invitation, I go, this is so apropos. But, you know, it's got all the red marks and the A+ and the, you know, and if you read it out there, you can tell it's from Bear Creek, because they had to have perfect sentence structure and the explaining their sentences. So anyhow, I was just blessed to have my daughter be able to be under her philosophy, and getting some of those life skills. Thanks for putting this together.
Thank you, Patty. And now, Miss Andrea Dirk.
A lot of us knew that Molly loved Shakespeare. Even she and Rob Kramer developed a Shakespeare program that I would put it up against any high school and even college. So I'm going to read from Shakespeare. Fear no more the heat of the sun. This Shakespearean funeral reading comes from the play Cymbeline. It talks about how death can be a release to a place of peace and safety. Fear no more the heart of the sun, nor the furious winter rages. Thou thy worldly task hast done, home art gone, and taken thy wages. Golden lads and girls all must, as chimney sweepers come to dust. Fear no more the frown of the great. Thou art past the tyrant's stroke. Care no more to clothe and eat. To thee the reed is as the oak. The scepter, learning, physical, must all follow this and come to dust. Fear no more the lightning flash, nor the all-dreaded thunderstone. Fear not slander, censure rash. Thou hast finished joy and moan. All lovers young, all lovers must consign to thee and come to dust. No exorciser harm thee, nor no witchcraft charm thee. Ghost unlaid forbear thee. Nothing ill come near thee. Quiet consummation have, and renowned be thy grave.
As we close this evening's celebration of life for Molly Dahl, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Grace Fellowship of Lakewood Church for hosting, Kimball Florals, Dan, Cheryl, Johnny, Josh, and for the planning committee to putting this together. I appreciate you all being here. We appreciate you being here. And let us continue with some light refreshments and yummy cupcakes and share some camaraderie. Have a wonderful evening.